Oh, like we're the last to come.
Hello, Councilor Moore, can you hear us okay?
Can hear you just fine, Chad.
All right, thank you.
So still waiting for Miss Rita.
Is there a writing utensil I can steal?
Oh, she's got a right there, thank you.
We have any color you'd like.
Teal.
Probably. We can get going. Do we want to text Rita?
Sure, let me work on that.
Is that good? Can we go ahead and start and she can join us? Yeah. Okay, our November 30th, 2021 work session is in order. And our work session today is to look at our city council goals, make some revisions possibly, or at least get some ideas. While the public is invited to attend online, this is a work session and there will be no public comment. And I believe our rules say we can't make any final decisions either. And I can tell you from the last draft you all would have seen, which looks very similar. What I asked Chad to do this week when we talked about it is the first column from previous. The item number has been changed, so we truly have an item number and not just a line item. The priorities have not changed. And then Chad and his staff have gone through the status and given us updates all the way through this 4-page goals list. The other thing that I want to talk about real quick is that this goals list has been around for years. And it's just in the last year or so that we put it on something to start making it look a little bit more like a dashboard. So we can track a little bit better where we are. We have added to it 2 times And that would be starting on page 2, number 14, and moving forward from there to number 25, 14 to 25. Those came from Chad's city administrator review, December of 2020. Because at the end of the review, there's a place for counselors to say goals. And so we moved those forward. So just so you understand that those came from his review, it's feedback from council. Number 25 to 35 are just items that we have been working on through council consensus through all our meetings, more like regular business, but they have become goals. And then on line, between line 35 or item number 35 and 36, you'll see there's another set of goals from the February-March city administrator review. So this has been built upon based on feedback from us, either in city council meetings or the 2 evaluations that we've done most recently. So I just wanted to cue that up. My other comment that I would say is, do we at some point want to define priority 1, 2, and 3? Does that mean anything other than priority 1 means get it done sooner? Is there a more formal time when we would want to review or update these type of documents? How often should we be looking at them? And well, I think that's mainly it. And so Chad, I think you were going to start us off and kind of walk through the document for everybody.
Yes, thank you, Mayor and Council. In regards to what you just said, I think that it would be best to, continue to bring the goals list to the city council quarterly. And at least just a very basic report on where we're at and to see if there's any concerns. If there's anything that changes that's substantial, the city staff can highlight that, and just so you have an understanding of what's going on. And so that's really a goal for us to do more often.
Okay.
Through that. And yeah, it is a working list. This list is not everything that the city has accomplished either. When you look at this last year, I was reflecting on the last almost complete year now, 360 days since we really started getting into this with this version here. And I was looking back and there's been a lot of transition within Gearhart and our staff. And it's been good for us for the most part. We have really kind of come together with a really good team. I'm excited for this next year, and I'm excited to see a lot of these goals kind of continue to move forward, and maybe even more so now that the team has come together and the jobs have been a little bit better defined between all of us. And then the other thing about this is we have to remember that even though it really hasn't stymied any of our projects or anything, we've been working through COVID period of time. And I forget that sometimes, and we wonder where our stresses come from or where some of the difficulties in doing business and operations are. And so just reflecting on that was helpful to understand that I think we've done a pretty good job over this last year accomplishing some really good things. With that, I think that what I can go through first and kind of a little bit more quickly is some of the things that we have accomplished so we can get them off this list, or at least put them onto a list of accomplished items. And if I was to go through those where we were at, emergency supplies and facilities we'll talk about here in a little bit, but the workforce affordable housing and housing study, that 100% is, and I had a good conversation with Paulina today about this, is the actual workforce housing study has been completed. That's been done. It's going to need to be updated moving forward again because of the new population figures that are coming in. but it doesn't mean that the workforce affordable housing issue is complete. You know, and Mayor Cochran came up with a good point, and this is something that's just in our hearts to continue to work through when the opportunity arises, such as things that come to us through the planning commission or code changes that we're going through. You know, workforce housing is keen. We're keen on making sure we insert workforce housing into those ideas. And as I explained earlier today, you know, the multiplex building that was out on the highway, the planning commission that went through that conditional use process was thinking about workforce housing. And they made a decision with all the criteria intact, still based on the fact that workforce housing was important to them. And so that's one of the reasons that that decision was able to be made. It was a collaborative effort between the builders and planning commission. So those things will continue and continue to move around. So it's an ongoing process. So the study had been done to this level. We'll continue to work on that. Duncan's Crossing, you know, the building and all that has been complete. There's still some things we need to accomplish with a little opening and some signage, but otherwise that project is finished. The ongoing portion of that is going to be continuing to maintain the more difficult part of the trail where things are growing and moving, growing and having to be maintained. It's a wild area back there, but that's something that will be ongoing as well. Monthly and quarterly reports we've been doing a pretty good job with that.
Are you on page 2 now?
Yeah, excuse me.
Tell us where you're
Page 2, line 14, second one down. And second down. This is the monthly and quarterly reports. And the city staff, as you know, has been spending more time within the council chambers and updating the council. And I think that's been going really well. We'll get back to the dashboard metrics in that in a little bit. On page 3, there was a project to have a discussion about the financial accrual versus cash. And I think we've gotten some of those answers from our auditors about as to why the method that we use now is probably best for us. And with these new auditors, I'm very pleased with their tough, and they're holding us accountable on every way that an auditor should. And we're growing from that. So we'll continue to monitor how the financial reporting goes within the city. But for right now, I think that question has been answered. Received draft plans and quotes from vendor. I'm on 26 with the kids' play equipment.
I'm just waving to Rita.
Oh, good. Hi, Rita. The draft plans and the quotes from the vendor for the kids' play equipment has been accomplished, but of course, the installation has not, and we're still working through a conditional use process that will be approaching the planning commission as soon to finish or to enter into that project and get some opinions from the planning commission. Line 28, noise ordinance was placed on here. I think that contractor work hours ordinance changes have accomplished most of what we needed to accomplish in that. And so far we haven't had any issues there, but if that doesn't help the way that the public wanted it to, we can make some changes moving forward, but for now we're done with that.
Is that gone into effect now? Because isn't it 30 days after? So almost.
Yeah, I think in just a couple of days it goes into effect.
Will there be a different sign made?
Actually, Councillor Warren brought up an interesting project, and it's something that we are looking at with our business licensing. I'm sure, I haven't checked with Chief Bowman and whether or not he's going to make some signs, but that's a good suggestion. The other thing that Councillor Warren, I heard, came up with was making sure that we actually send out a copy of the new ordinance in a letter to all of the type of businesses that it will likely affect that are within our building, our business license.
I'm not advocating for signs. I just think the signs would be inaccurate. once
Yeah.
this goes into effect, and so they should either be bucked up or
Yeah, I
a
think
sticker put on it or something.
we'll take a look at that. I know that Chief likes to use those for communication, so I'll work with him on that. So we've accomplished that in the work session that went along with it. Line 33, we also completed the water bond refinance, which was a nice savings for taxpayers in Gerhart. And so that has been completed. Line 35 on page 4. So there's no page numbers on there. You know, the audit was giving us some trouble over last year because of us losing our auditor that we've been with for many years and transitioning over. But we're right back into the swing of things, and the current audit is going well, and that process is started, and it's
We have the draft.
getting close to completion. We just have to do a few more interviews with staff, with them, and then that way our audit is on time and will be delivered on time to the state this year as well. So that's a good one. I'm really happy with the auditors. I think Justine is as well.
Very good.
The fire chief position that we have in there at 75%, that's something that we're going to tackle tomorrow night at the city council meeting. So that's near completion. And the planning and building assistant was something that was in our goals list to try to accomplish. And I think with some moves that the city has made lately, with combining 3 positions into 1 full-time position, we've accomplished the task of finding somebody who can help us through planning endeavors here within Gerhart to assist Carol and myself. And that project is going to take a lot of work off of my position especially. And I'm really excited, but it's an ongoing project as the training is continually moving forward. We have just started in that position. There's a lot of training to do, but I already see a lot of the positive things that will come from that.
Can I ask a quick question on that? So
Sure.
are you saying then that bottom one on item 38, where it says planning building assistant, ties in with number 41, where we've got higher code enforcement, budget timeline, and then it says higher planning assistant to assistant code enforcement? They're all kind of saying the same thing from different people. You know, different people said it differently. Is that kind of all the same?
It's an idea that this assistant is going to be able to help make code enforcement more productive in regards to letters, holding people accountable, getting us through court if necessary, and all of that. So it will help, and we'll see that this position being in planning, the code enforcement we're talking about is based in the zone code. You know, the municipal code that Chief Bowman takes care of, that enforcement is happening. But the code enforcement side of things and taking enforcement issues from the beginning through the end will be integral in that planning position. So I do see an increase in our abilities to be able to take care of issues as they come up. So I think it will be helping, but right now we're concentrating on the planning side of things. But when we hire the position on the job description, code enforcement and aid in code enforcement is in there. So I guess long story short, yeah, we should see some improvement in that area.
Yeah, am I missing something? Has that person been hired?
Yes. Yes. So what we did is, we've been talking about the building code situation in the state and transitioning over into having a full-time code enforcement employee working for, not code enforcement, building official employee working for the city. The League of Oregon Cities got involved in this because a lot of the smaller cities said it would be very difficult on their budget, and it would be, because it's an expensive job to hold within a city. So right now, the state has got more requirements for the city to begin taking on more of the task of building official oversight, auditing, and having to do with the delivery and execution of stop work orders and that. So that is coming more into the city realm. So what we did with the retirement of Ms. Cheryl Lund as our court clerk and our planning clerk, she was working just very part-time. She'd been doing the job for almost 49 years. With her retirement, we took the opportunity to have the planning assistant position funds that were available in the budget, the court clerk funds that were available in the budget to take care of the majority of the cost of the employee. And it could be worked through that, general fund is complete, but we are in the midst of renegotiating the contract with the building official as well to pull some of the funds that would otherwise go to that department into the city department and general fund planning, because the office manager for the building office department is now in-house with us. She's working with us. It helps us along those lines of some of the requirements that the state is now putting on. It also helps us have somebody here full-time now to assist with building questions, planning questions, zoning questions. And so taking 3 part-time positions and moving them into 1 full-time position is really what we're doing. So if everything works out the way that we think it will, there will be no extra costs to the city. These are within funds that we already have, and the way we're organizing it, I don't see any additional monies that would be needed to go to any of those departments, pending the completion of our new agreement with the building official, which is happening. And it's a requirement for the new agreement to have certain things in with the state as well. So it's perfect time. So yes.
So in essence, you hired a person that has been helping marketing his endeavor. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes. So Miss Angelina was the office manager for the building official. She went ahead and did all of the permit processing. And then she did the office management for that, and then the customer contact aspect. So she's going to be doing that for the city now as our representative. We'll be able to renegotiate the contract to be able to take care of that portion. But even then, with the monies that we have elsewhere, we should be able to accomplish that position without increasing costs.
So if there's any other questions on this, can we cover them at council tomorrow? Because you may be looking a little more, wanting a little bit more report on.
Tomorrow is more appropriate, yes.
Okay, great. But
That's fine. Yeah, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
So,
well, and that's an issue, so we'll discuss that again tomorrow night. And then ELK, determine the city, line 40, the commitment to the Urban Solutions ELK project. The design of that project, the declaration of cooperation is finished. We have the items that Gerhard is said that we would move forward with. Now it's just us getting to the point of getting these to the planning commission as projects and starting to look at some of our ordinances and how we can change them to best work with ELK. And some of those are things such as looking at our fence ordinance and looking at better communication to the public as far as what to plant and that sort of thing. So it's ongoing. Now that we've got that project done with Urban Solutions, we have the information, we have this declaration of cooperation, and the city will move forward with implementing some of those things as the city sees fit.
And so the items that we agreed to with the collaborative, is there any way we can get a copy of that so we can see what it is that they expect of us?
You know, what I would recommend is that we take that declaration, the Gerhard one, and maybe at our next work session, which should be around February-ish, maybe council could take a look at that and prioritize for planning for the planning commission. So do we want to work on fences first, or do we want to work on brochures to tell people what to plant? Or, you know, I mean, there's other stuff in there too, but let us give that priority to the planning commission and then let them work on those.
Okay.
If we could.
Noted that.
I have an issue with that.
And
That works for me.
the only thing that I think you haven't seen is the finalized copy of the declaration. There were drafts that came to the council, and we discussed some of those items that were on there. But the final draft is very similar to what we already looked at. Very few minor changes, and we'll go ahead and get that to you right away, and then we can schedule that on a future agenda.
That's great.
Okay.
Any comments from Rita or Brent at this point in time?
Nope, not at this time. Sounds like a good plan with the Elk Collaborative and the restructuring of the planning and court clerk are interesting.
And I want to thank you for giving so much attention to the code enforcement. Thank you very much.
And is there somewhat of a consensus that we could keep doing these 5th Tuesday work sessions as a way of keeping our projects moving forward from a strategic level? With that,
Yes. Yeah,
it seems like it's worked okay.
Yeah.
it has. And I apologize for being late. I have no excuse.
Here we are. All right, so to kind of go through the rest of these, I color coded them in green, yellow, and sometimes we don't have any real red in there, but there's some that are close to red. But I can go down the list to a basic description of where we're at with this, and then see if there's any comments from the city council about it. But this is more of an update of some of the things that we're already on here. Starting with the water meter replacement. We have the whole project done. It's the whole project itself is closer to 75% as far as completion goes, with the amount of new water meters that we're replacing the old ones with. This is good for efficiency, it's good for billing, it's good for water usage, it's good for our conservation plan as well, to make sure that we are selling all the water that we're making, or at least most of it. There's always an allowed amount of loss that happens within the city because of small leaks and things. This project has been difficult over the last 2 years, just trying to find the outside contractors that can help us. Our public works has continued to install water meters as needed and make changes out and repairs, and they've been installing new water meters, so it's continuing on. But we are awaiting a company. We've got a couple of companies in mind, and we've asked them to give us a call when they have time available. We have yet to hear from them, and that will help us finish that project. It'll still take a couple of years, I think, from this point to really finish that up, but we've come a long way with the last 2 years.
Do we own most of the meters at this point, or do we still have to purchase for the ones that need to be installed?
We have a pretty good backstock of the meters now. We purchased them when they were available a year ago and a year before that. I don't think we have most, but we have a large portion, a larger portion of it. More than half of what we need, we have in stock. And then we order more as we start doing work on that.
Okay.
So any questions about that or comments?
I assume anything metal seems to be going through the roof price wise, so we're better off to own them already and purchase them in the future.
Yeah, and these particular meters that we were buying have been plastic, and they are currently changing back into more metal. So we're going to use the ones that we have. They still work just fine, but they found that the wear and tear on the wheel part of it was kind of difficult. But once we start going to electronic reading, that'll be a new point.
And it sounded when Mark came to talk to us that this really is going to become an ongoing task that they have to manage. Not a council role as much as this is just what you do, you have to manage them. Yeah, preventive maintenance.
Something that we, as a city, hadn't done before. We installed all the meters and then called it good.
Yeah.
And now with this project getting us up into this place, and actually, unfortunately, the amount of time that it's taken to get to this point is actually not a bad thing. Because if we replace them all at once and got that all complete, then we would be under the same gun here in another 10, 15 years when those meters need to be replaced as well. So we'll be able to get into a phase where we'll be able to maintain it ourselves and not have to go out with an on-site contractor to replace them all as well. Evacuation supplies are 90%. That's because we still have some improvements to make in our system, in our storage. But our supply program is going really, really well. We've purchased almost everything that we needed to purchase from the grants that we've had. We've done inventories. We have a good solid inventory procedure. And then the barrel program is also starting to take over. You know, I think that the last event we had 4 or 6, I can't recall, new barrels, and so that just keeps building. I think we're getting close to the teens and barrels stored for people. So that's just 90%. That will be ongoing as well.
Kudos to Christy for getting that barrel program up and running. Really, she did a lot of the work on that.
All right, 75% census. Well, the census has been done. Now it's up to the city to start updating some of its documentation in regards to the census. So those will be things that we'll be going through. Workforce housing available inventory is going to be a portion of that. Our available state funds that come to the city, the Gearhart will be adjusted, so we'll be receiving more funds based on the approximate 22% increase that we had over the last 10 years. PSU estimated that we'd be, I think, either 5.5 or 6.5% increase over the last 10 years. It turned out to be 22. So we're having conversations about that and making sure that we're keen on the next 10 years and estimating a little bit better. It wasn't our estimation, it's PSU estimation, but we're kind of squeaky wheel for that. Water rights, water rate study. This is a project that is, the rate study is newer. The water rights is a little bit of the older portion of this. This is where the city of Gearhart attempting to obtain 100% water rights so that we are able to pump enough water through our system and our pumps without going to the city of Warrenton in the summer during the time that we are restricted by Water Resources Division. The chances of us getting more water rights from Water Resources Division is maybe at the best 50%. And that would be because of the way that the water rights are really becoming an issue throughout Oregon. So granting us more rights is going to be difficult. But some of the projects that we're doing, such as our new water conservation plan and the water meters and our water loss program, those will help us in the future when we can go for more water rights. City of Warrenton is going through the same sort of thing. They're having to make some changes to their outlook as far as how much water they have in the future for the amount of growth. So this is going to be something in the Clatsop Plains area, this part of the county, it's going to be a hot button issue moving forward. We'll be able to continue to do what we have, but we may have to change some of our procedures, and we may have to start looking at something like system development charges. That's something that may be required in order for us to start doing more to save both for our water treatment facility and to move towards water rights. It's complicated, but we are doing a lot of the background and underlying projects that will help bolster that process.
So with the concern of pulling water out of rivers and damage that does to habitat. It seems like they would be thrilled to have us, as long as we're not hurting the aquifer, that they would be thrilled to have us pumping it, our share of water out of the aquifer and potentially selling back to Warrenton versus Warrenton pulling more water out of streams and rivers. And just logically, I don't understand what their problem is if we're, if we're really causing damage and sucking down the aquifer, that's one thing, but I don't think that there's a case that's been made that that's a problem yet, is there?
Oh, our water studies that we do every year is required by Water Resources Division show that our aquifers perform very well.
Right.
We're not really putting a dent into it. There is a small fluctuation seasonally, but it is quite a small fluctuation. It was even less than what you would anticipate for a drought. It doesn't seem like that lower aquifer is being affected that much. Key though is that our distance from our pumps to the Neocons Creek is the trigger for us being under restrictions. The worry was that we would be pumping so much lower in the aquifer that would actually drain part of the Neocons River. So they asked us to go ahead and test it. At the time, this is before me, at the time, the city said, well, hey, you know, you realize this is a tidally influenced river, it's going to be impossible to see, you know, really what the effect is on it. They said, yes, but study it anyway and give us the data. So we spent years and years giving them this data, and they call us every once in a while asking us why there's all these fluctuations, and then we remind them that it is a tidally influenced river. So that is the reason that we are having, one of the reasons that we're having 100% water rights because of our location in the Neocons River.
And the water is lower. I mean, it's lower at my house. When I moved in, my dock was hardly even at this point. You just see the top of the dock, but now you can see 4 feet of piling. It's just a 2x4, but you know, I mean, it's a lot more. Thanks.
Yeah, and there hasn't been any correlation to what we're doing in our aquifer, but because again, the level of the aquifer down, we pulled down all the way 160 feet, but the measurement point is much higher than that, and it's not fluctuated greatly at all. So it would be a study. It would be something that we'd have to delve into. When we're ready, we should.
Some people say it's because of culverts that are walking.
The Pacific Way used to be a bridge. And water definitely flew, went through that a little bit better, but it's beginning to fail, so it's replaced by the culvert system again. Public Works staff is keen on keeping those clear. There is a blockage up above that has been done by Beaver that may be restricting some of the flow that you see monitoring it, because the water behind that has come up. So you'll see at the RV park at Sunset Lake, that park is continually almost flooded. And so I think that might have something to do with it, but it's not a terrible thing. Beaver Dam has been back in there. It has created some wetland area. So it's really hard to say if it's the aquifer. But we have very detailed studies that we spend probably close to $45,000 a year, bringing all that data together, disseminating, sending it to Water Resources Division. So far, we haven't seen any detrimental effect of our pumping. I can't say that. So we'll continue to move forward with that, but the rate study is something that I would like to make more of a priority here, and hopefully get that done within the next year. Water conservation plan is being done now. That work is started, so it's probably a little bit beyond 25%, but we'll start seeing some data and make some reports to city council. Water loss percentage program is involved with that. Conservation plan works on water loss prevention, detecting leaks and that sort of thing. So those will be accomplished here. Definitely within the year. The rate study, we'll take a look at that and begin looking at some vendors that can help us out.
Can I ask a question about the last column on the right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you go water, loss percentage and it goes 1221.
That was a projected completion date of finishing that project. When we came up with it back in 421, I think I was just short-sighted in the amount of time and energy that would take.
Okay, so they basically can all be stricken because we're not anywhere near any of those.
Yes, I'm gonna do, after this conversation today, I'm gonna go through and look at the project completion dates, see what the priorities are of the city council, and then adjust those.
Yeah.
Okay, Dune vegetation ordinance has been completed, but that was some time ago, so that just needs to be done on line 5. Line 6, Parks, Trails and Master Plan is moving forward. We have a meeting coming up with this planning commission, not this Thursday, but next Thursday. We're almost complete with that grant process, and then that Parks Master Plan will come to the city council soon. I believe that will happen before the end of this winter in order to meet the timelines. Fire station resilience and preparedness. This is the entire project itself is probably really at a 50% completion. A lot of the data, a lot of the ideas, we're moving forward towards the May election cycle if the council so chooses. And I will say that we will be ready for that election cycle if the council chooses to go with the bond issuance, and we'll have to make that decision in February. The city will start making presentations to the city council starting in the end of December, January, as far as the information that we're going to begin putting out to the public again. It's been just changed with the new locations. And I think that will at least get that to the voters this year if all goes well.
If somebody chooses to challenge us on the ballot title like we went through prior, do they have until the 11th hour to do that? Or if we submit ours on the first day that we can,
Yes.
then they have, that triggers, they have a certain amount of time to fight us, which potentially would give us a better chance to rebound and still make the deadline. Is that how that works?
Yes, and so the last time that occurred is we get down to the 11th hour, and with the unanticipated delays that happen within the court system with the way that the court works now, we kind of got behind the 8 ball on that, and then that process of the appeal took us out of play. Moving forward, though, we will be ready for that in a much earlier fashion, get done with that project, that portion of it in the appeal process very quickly. The other thing that we did is Peter Watts and staff, we went through the appeal process when we didn't have to, got the judge's decision on the current question that we presented, and he approved it. We won that challenge. There was no changes recommended, and we're going to, if the council chooses, we're going to use that same exact verbiage moving forward for the next election cycle. So it's already been proven it will be more difficult to appeal because it has shown this good work. So now that we have that answer, things should go much more smoothly.
But on Dan's point, if we file at the beginning and they wait until 4 o'clock on the last day that you can file a complaint, are the courts going to be available to us? See, there's no way of knowing.
Well, in to that point, and your question is good. If the city does everything it needs to do and gets everything taken care of as soon as we can file for the election, the appeal process starts from that date once we file. And then that appeal has only a very short amount of time to be the window is only a short amount of time.
Okay, so they're limited on a time frame. too.
Correct.
Okay,
I don't see how any appeal would stop us moving forward.
All right.
on the election.
Assume
We're prepared.
that we submit promptly.
Yes,
Okay.
and that is what we're going to do.
Okay. Thank you.
yeah.
So any other questions about that?
I have one other, just a comment. It was brought to our attention from somebody I think is on the call or was, Tom Pease. Chad and I met with him a while back, a couple months ago. And part of the feedback that he felt, first of all, he was very vocal that he feels that is our number one priority, and he was concerned that it was item 7, although it was actually item 23 at that time. But yeah, so that and also went on the next page, New City Hall, he wondered about that. But so there is the thinking that if there really is truly more of a prioritization, maybe there isn't, since they are all marked as a number one priority. You know what I mean? Do you know what
I
I'm
understand
saying?
what you're saying, yes.
Yeah, so I just want to point that
It
out.
did appear as though it was buried. And that comment was the reason that Polina helped us with these changes. So I think that the form looks a lot better now.
Yeah,
The alternative power supply at the reservoirs and the gas fuel supply, that's more of the resilience preparedness. We are working towards an alternative power supply at the reservoir to monitor those electronics for that tank and some other ideas. So we've got some information on that, but we're not ready to move forward with the project yet. The gas fuel supply is something that Mark McFadden accomplished in getting the monies set aside for that. We're now working with the fire marshal and the building officials to make sure that we do things in the correct way. And then Mark McFadden will be reporting again to you and the council, Carrie Smith, under recommendation with how the installation is going to go and how it works with the building code and fire code.
that's for the gas.
That's particularly for the gas tank. Carrie's concern is valid. How is this going to perform in
Right.
a tsunami or earthquake? Any other questions about this line 7 and down? All right, line 8 was the policies, procedures, operation manual, organizational chart. It was a long process, but it has been basically completed. We are currently using the new manual, it's working well. We have looked at the organizational chart, some very minor things and some changes that we have to make, some recent council decisions with the fire chief's position. We'll need to be just showing that, but otherwise, I think that we've got a good part to now maintain. Now our job is just to maintain that document and those procedures moving forward. And we will be making changes to them as situation changes to occur.
And I want to thank Justine for attending to some of the detail in that document and making sure that some of those things have actually come to fruition in terms of procedural things. It's much appreciated.
Ridge path extension, again, this is where I put 50% on the line that says path maintenance and clearing. That's something that Mark McFadden and his crew and I have met about, and we have done some work, but the overall performance of that trail, the width of the trail, and that will need to be addressed so that there's not so much maintenance on it. That's ongoing. It's looking better these days, and now people are starting to use that trail with crossing as well. Signage is next on that to start.
Astoria has a volunteer group that's called Chip In. Park Chip In, and they help with parks. I don't know anything more than they had an ad in the paper one time. I saw it, and it was a cool idea.
I'm glad you brought that up because it was, also a group of volunteers that helped accomplish the Duncan's Crossing project.
Right.
Steve Irvin was the gentleman who moved permanently in town, or pretty well permanently, And he called up and he was one of those folks that says, how can I help? And I mean, we were having trouble with getting Lincoln's Crossing finished, so he helped put together the citizens group that helped us get that done. And he helped push it forward. So him and his team of volunteers were very helpful.
And the city has also used volunteers on at least a couple of occasions doing trail maintenance.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is there an active Boy Scouts troop in the area? I was just wondering if an organization like that could help, or completely different group, like a work crew from Clatsop County. Whether it's people that are doing community service to pay off their debt to society, or those that are incarcerated, work crew, any chance of something like that?
Our insurance company has asked that we stay away from some of that.
Okay.
Because it is a liability and difficult, but the good news on the Scout program, which I think is now, intermixed with boys, girls, men and women, is starting to come back into Gearhart a little bit because of intern Chief Como. His family is kind of involved in some of that. So he just had some conversations about how they can help around town, what opportunities there were. We didn't talk about anything specific, but that's moving forward. Were you a scout yourself?
I wasn't, but I just know I have relatives that were, and there's a lot. Seems like there's a huge component of that organization that is giving back to the community. So
It's part of the merit badges we receive.
yeah.
Horrors of all horrors, I believe I was the section chief or whatever they call it. I used to have the meetings here every day.
Den mother.
Den mother. Boy.
Oh,
I was patrol leader of Troop 512.
what?
I was patrol leader for Troop 512.
Yeah.
We were the Cobras. It was a big deal back then. It was great. So, page 3. Oh, no, excuse me. Page 2. Back to page 2. Celebrate, so let's see, the Marvin City Hall. Start at page 1, page 2 top. New City Hall has been a priority 3 for Gearhart at the time. This project is really kind of tied in with the new fire station. That we will have some opportunities if we do go through the fire station and then build that, then we'll have some opportunities to remodel City Hall. And we should take some of those things would be making the meeting room a little bit bigger and adding a couple of more offices here at City Hall.
So this must go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to suggest rephrasing that a little bit. Update, remodel City Hall versus new City Hall. And I really think we should be looking at air purification systems for the existing facilities, because they're saying that those can really help with COVID transmission because it is airborne aerosols, and filtration systems can greatly reduce transmission. So any kind of a remodel should include that. In fact, maybe that should be the priority for looking at the City Hall.
Got it. I wrote that down. Thank you. It's been a long time since anything's been done with this building as well, so it is time for the little new carpets and paint to go away.
But we do have one air scrubber out in the front since COVID started.
Yeah, we have one that uses what's the word?
HEPA filter?
It's got the filter attached to it, and also
UV.
has the UV line on it as well. But it's not enough to take care of the entire building.
Wait, do you have a vague idea what we have in the budget for maintenance at this point? Because we do put money aside for maintenance every year that we have. I don't recollect, I can look it up.
It's throughout our budget because different departments also help with the maintenance here, for example, because we do a lot of the water billing. A lot of what we do has to do with that here in town. So the water treatment facility has some budgeted monies. The general fund has some budgeted monies. And I believe in some of the other state funds that we receive have some budgeted monies. But I think that this year it might be altogether, those are close to about 20,000. As far as maintenance, it might be greater than that. I'm kind of hedging with that, but that's just fine. My guess.
So you're talking budget this year, but don't we have
Building fund.
a building fund? Yes.
Yeah, we have a building reserve fund.
Okay, that's what I was referring to, sorry.
Yeah, the building reserve fund is for all the buildings within Gerhart, but it doesn't include City Hall.
All buildings in Gerhart?
All city buildings.
All city buildings. Thank you.
I could use that.
Yeah, that's, and in that reserve fund currently. Road district, state streets. State street fund, water reserve, police car reserve, fire apparatus. Expenditures, you know, I gotta take a look at it, but I think we've got over a couple $100,000.
Okay.
In there, or it's close to that. I'm not sure what it's at on this thing.
I was remembering 183 or something like that.
Justine, would you like to get your hands on that 5 pages? Yeah, need to look at.
But the point being, I guess, once the fire hall is built, assuming that we pass the bond and actually make it happen, we have a chunk of money that we can actually do something here to upgrade the current city hall.
Yes.
All right, once we get rid of certain factions. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, if we're able to move the.
Because it's not gonna happen until they move.
Right.
You know,
Yeah, 138,000.
Oh, 138, okay.
okay, so I reversed it.
Sound pretty good.
That's, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why. it's on.
75, Chad, it's 175.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Justine. We're on number 11 now.
Self-sustaining community, energy efficient. Now, other than the water rate studies and the water meters, the city has not moved forward with self-sustaining community other than being a partner with Pacific Power and buying our electricity as we continue to do so, and then promoting that purchasing of wind power electricity through our residents through Pacific Power, and the city of Gerhart did receive awards for the amount of positive inclusion in that project within our residents. We haven't done much in the way of the energy efficient. I know one of the projects that's on Mayor Cochran's mind is, you know, looking at the future of an electric vehicle for the city. And we're always looking at that and waiting kind of for the technology to come up with a vehicle that we need. But right now with the pickup trucks that we have and police vehicles, we're staying with gas power for now. But as things change and some new equipment comes out and the ability, we will look at that. We don't have any real staff vehicles other than, you know, for emergency services. We're currently selling the 2 that we have, and then not looking at purchasing one in the near future, but that would be a primary, you know, if we did get a staff vehicle for code enforcement, for administrative things, or for traveling to and from various meetings, and that would be a good opportunity for us to take it.
If you auction those vehicles, will that be, go out on the blog?
Yeah, we'll advertise in the newspaper, we'll advertise in the blog, and there's also an auction site, some sites that we can do within the state to put that up. And Those vehicles, then it's a closed bid. People get the description of the vehicle with some of the information that we have on it. And they're able to come take a look at those vehicles. They put a bid in an envelope, we collect those envelopes, and then we've asked the counselor to attend the opening of those envelopes and award it to the highest bidder.
And that's the Durango, and what's the other vehicle?
That would be another patrol vehicle, Yukon, with over 200,000 miles on it.
Okay.
One that's,
Is that the chief's vehicle that's not running?
yes, it is.
The Yukon's not running.
Excuse me, no, that is another vehicle that is not yet coming up. It's got, I know Bowen was having some issues with it getting fixed. I'm not sure exactly where we are with that repair. This is a Yukon that Ian was driving, and that was replaced some time ago. City, we tried to keep it so that we could use it for some emergency response and for an administrative vehicle, but it's just not worth keeping at this point. It's time to sell it.
And the Durango?
The Durango is Chief Bowman's police vehicle more than 10 years ago, and we have kept it and used it quite a bit, but it's getting to the age and the amount of rust to where the repairs are starting to become expensive. So it's that little vehicle that Chief used to run, I think about maybe 15 years ago. But we kept it going.
I drove it, doing the kids' backpacks.
I remember.
Mhm.
Okay, so that gets us in the new City Hall, self-sustaining community. This is a conversation to get, we're just gonna have to keep having within your heart and take every opportunity we can. Review of the urban growth area, that includes the police fire station expansion and census. That's kind of a doubling up on some of the goals that we have, because we already talked about both of those things. Upgrading the water main along Highway 101. This is an old water main that is one of the next water mains that we do need to replace, but it's kind of an expensive endeavor because it goes underneath the highway all the way north and south. And we are keen on this in regards to any changes that happen to Highway 101. We have inserted this portion of our need in there, and if there is an opportunity to open up the highway and part of that remodeling process that we do, we will take that opportunity to make the replacement repairs. Otherwise, we don't want to open up.
Would we undertake this if they didn't remodel 101?
Eventually, yes, we're going to have to one way or the other.
So the Highway 101 expansion and remodel is paid for by the state, is this correct?
Potentially, partially. It could be, there are funds available to the state and grants that the city would have to apply for. The main part of that was getting the transportation systems plan done.
Sure.
We did that a couple of years ago. Now that we've got the transportation systems plan, we were able to go to ODOT and talk about this reconfiguration idea of Highway 101. And so we're going through that process, and it's a long process. There's a lot of planning to do with it and public input. We've been through most of that as well. So we're going to start, as was reported by ODOT during the last meeting, things will start getting a little bit more exciting in regards to the conversation about that. If there's if there's an opportunity to open up the highway, then we will take that opportunity. And we will be able to accomplish that within our reserve funds that are in the water reserve fund as well.
Okay, thanks.
But currently, to be clear, there is no, ODOT does not have any money to do that project at this time, other than the study.
I think it's like, yeah, it's the planning is what they fund.
Yes, I understand, but they don't have funding to actually complete the project that's being proposed.
Every year, ODOT takes in a lot of projects, and it's actually a 4-year process to begin looking at getting funds to come to a city such as Gearhart for our section of Highway 101. We're now within that planning process, whereas before we were never considered because we didn't have a transportation systems plan. Now that we do, we're going along with that plan and starting to try to implement some of the ideas. And then concurrently, we are putting ourselves in for future funding to do those projects. But it takes this, succession of policy change, ideas, planning to do that. But yes, we are in the pipeline now to receive funds for projects such as this. Would it be 100% of the funds? Probably not. But it could be a good part of the funds, and then the city of Gerhart will have to look at how to fund the rest of it, depending on what project we choose.
Right, but I'm gonna go back to the question I asked. Currently, there is not funding for the project. The reason I say that is I've had several people beating on me about why didn't we know this project was happening? I don't like the idea of what you're trying to do. It's like, well, this is a plan. This isn't, they're not doing it. But it came off in the newspaper like it was a done deal that the project was going to happen. At this point, we haven't completed the plan. Then the funding has to be found in order to actually pull off the plan.
You're right. That is right. There.
And-
Go ahead.
And I think I asked this question because I was approached today about, there's a cadre of folks within Gerhart who insist that the city of Gerhart is paying for the entire project and that we will be going out for a bond measure. And I didn't think that was fair or true.
The Drunken Lawyers Club is at it.
So that's why I put that question out there. Thank you.
Thanks for clarifying that also.
We're paying for it, holy cow.
There are funds for multiple projects in Oregon, but none of them are allocated to Gerhart at this time. This project will help us get, hopefully, some of those funds. We'll see how we can go.
Right.
It's so hard to believe that there's false information floating around.
There's lots of good information going on here.
No.
Well, we can just hope that ODOT puts up most of their, all of the money. That would be really good.
Yes, it was.
It would be special.
The only other question I have about that is the water main on the east side or the west side?
It is on the east side of the highway.
Yeah.
But it's under the pavement.
It is under the pavement and the right of way. It kind of weaves in and out depending on where the roadway is.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
Yeah. And do you have to do it all at once?
We should, we can do it in pieces.
Yeah.
You're gonna tear the road up, and you want to be having somebody else pay for the paving.
Gotcha.
Right, and you want the equipment, not there one day and there the next week. You want it there for 1 week and go take it out and put it in.
Right, got it.
Some of the plans only show that there's a partial sidewalk here and there. That may affect where we do now versus later, but yeah, as you say, Terry, we want us to do it all at once. But we are working on a project within the fire station run, the water main extension through Pine Ridge Drive into Highlands. If that all comes to fruition, that will also help us to maintain our water services in the case of a breakage much better than we could have. We can get around it, but this will make the health of that system and resiliency a lot better as well. That's the extension of the water line to accommodate the potential new neighborhood where the fire station is from. All right, I developed dashboard metrics and we can celebrate provides vision. The monthly and quarterly reports is something that's being done, but the staff, I have not developed yet a good dashboard yet for the ongoing projects and where we are with some of those. This document is part of that, but developing a dashboard to report to the city council about where we are on the projects on a frequent basis, we don't have. But quarterly reports, I think that's what we can get accomplished. That's something that hasn't been worked on very much. Any comments about the project tracking?
I'm not sure we need more than something like this, really. This is probably gonna be fun to get it up and running.
I'll work with you to reevaluate that. your ideas about the dashboard were good, and I think that there's positive things, some information, but we have done some things towards that.
Yeah.
All right, line 16 is a little bit harder. Line 16 was brought up as comp plan as a vision and goal for the city. Was concerned that, especially during succession of planning commissioners, that some of the comp plan history and experience could be lost. And that was during a time where we were going through, I think, more recent inductees to the planning commission. I think our planning commission is starting to become more seasoned now, and I don't see as much of a concern of holding the comprehensive plan up in a high enough regard to make sure that we're going along with it in every decision that we make. I think we're doing a better job with that these days. I don't have much of a concern from the staff standpoint, but the city council does. Let us know. Continue to try to work with them. What would a remedy look like? Talked about more of an introduction to new planning commissions, done a little bit differently from the city. Actual time spent with the comp plan, how it works with the city from our experiences in it. And we're doing that now. The people that are coming on, we're spending more time with them. But I didn't know really where else to go with that project at the moment, and I don't see a problem.
So is there a point at council where we can say, maybe we don't even need number 16 anymore? Where we can just make a recommendation that we potentially get rid of it?
If the council is not concerned with how we are performing in regards to the comprehensive plan, and we are using it as the appropriate filter, then yeah, I would say it would be time to take that off. If the council feels like the comprehensive plan is being that we're not on the path as well as we should be, then it's something we should address. But I don't see any problems coming through what it is that we've done over the last year or even two, to where we have really left the comprehensive plan with us and take it very seriously. So far so good, but if there happens to be an issue with the policy that the planning commission and the city council is coming up with that does not match the comprehensive plan, then that's a conversation. And I think at the time, again, we had a lot of new planning commissioners, so there was a concern. There's decisions that were made that were interesting. A lot having to do with the pub situation. That conversation brought some of this. We're at a lot of those hot button issue moving forward. We're concentrating on the comprehensive plan. Any other questions about that?
Well, I have a comment. I always hesitate to say that, but isn't that the planning department's job, not us? Isn't it their job to educate their commission on the comprehensive plan?
I think it's ingrained in what they do. A lot of the questions that we ask, and actually tomorrow night, we're going to be interviewing planning commissioners, and the questions that we ask of those planning commissioners are based on what their feelings about the current plan is. And so that helps ferret it out. But yeah, it is their job to make sure that they filter everything through. As far as getting people oriented, the staff is doing some of that as well. And I think it's going really well. I think that the planning commission currently is a body that's running fairly well. We're starting to get some people that have some time under their belt after the loss of planning commissioner Carl. There was a concern that some of the long-term members were kind of dwindling, but I think that the experience and what we have is good.
I agree, but I just think line 16 and 17 should be removed from our goals and be put on planning commission goals. Because if someone is applying to be on the planning commission, they should take the time to review the comprehensive plan and see exactly what is in store for them. But that's just a thought.
Any other councilors have any thoughts on that?
I would tend to agree.
I also,
Yeah, and I guess I would just say that, if the planning commission or the chair or the planning department, we have people who have been on the planning commission, who have experience, we've all read the comp plan. You know, we can always go guest speak to them if they need an education, we can give them our perspective. But we're not gonna barge in there unless they ask us to. So I mean, there are resources besides staff. But like for me, I've gotta ask me to do it and I'm happy to. If they find that need.
We have a tendency to pick counselors from that group as well. You know, so that continuity, I think is good. I wrote that down, we'll go ahead and remove that, and then I'll talk to the planning commission, and Carol about potentially adding something that has to do with that. Update public contracting and charter. I think that is also about procurement, and the rules that we have for contracting and procurement. And that is something that we have made strides on recently. Ms. Justine is helping us with some of those projects right now. And so we have made some improvements, including tomorrow night. You'll see the resolution that we're using is an improvement in communication. And our charter, when we do a charter update, will need to be updated reference to the more current procurement laws within Oregon. Some of what we require is actually more of what the state of Oregon requires at times. So that conversation will be whether or not we want to keep that or just cross-reference with the state. So
But it's really, the line item, that has been identified, but it's really just updating the charter, which some things need updating more than others, probably in there, but you know, the model one from the LLC has all the current laws in it, you know, and when you look at the model one and ours, there are a few significant differences, but 90% of the document is just fine the way it is. It's only 10% that needs to be fixed. I mean, from my first review of it. So, I don't know. I would just do it all at once.
but we are maintaining a list of things that
Yeah.
have been brought up. Chief Bowman has submitted some things, council has submitted some things, so that list is maintained so that when we do go through that process, we bring those back up. But it isn't scheduled at this point.
And I wrote citizen involvement committee as well.
Line 19, clean signs, that was something that was brought up as an improvement within town. Many of our signs have been clean, there's still some that haven't, but there's always room for improvement, and that's going to be ongoing. So I'm not sure that it needs to be a council goal necessarily, as just the council holding us responsible for getting that done. So I'm not sure I want to treat that.
Let me ask though, and maybe I've asked this to you before. Is there a preventive maintenance program for public works?
There is in regards to the water treatment facility and the water system. There is in regards to our equipment that we use and all of that. And there is, certain things within town that we maintain, such as the water meter connections with Warrenton and all that have to be continually updated. That's per code. But in regards to signs, street painting and things, there isn't a preventative maintenance program in place that schedules that out.
For this building?
This building is necessary. We've done some things. We had it painted recently, and then we have some quotes on the roofing, shingle roofing that we're obtaining, and we just recently redid the roof. So we are maintaining the building. We just repainted the fire hall as well, and the ongoing maintenance happens.
Right.
We're not getting into a disrepair other than the age of these buildings and making sure that we keep up with them. There's just a few things for the exterior on this building, but otherwise it's fine. But no, there's not a complete plan for.
Right, so the Public Works Department could come up with a preventive maintenance schedule. Downtime in winter, they can go around and cut overhanging branches on walkways and things that are encroaching in sidewalks. Well, cloudy day, they could, and they're not doing anything particularly in a rush, they could go out and take out 5 street signs as a PM work. And especially in wintertime, when you know it's so much easier to do it because it's already wet.
I want to give, you know what I'll do is I'll give Mark McFadden an opportunity to update. He's due to update the city council coming up in January, I believe. And I'll give him an opportunity to speak more about this because there are some plans and some preventive maintenance that I'm not aware of that are in that department.
Okay,
And so we'll give him an opportunity to speak about that. But there are some things that we can improve upon, like what you're suggesting. And what I might have him do is contact you, offsite and have some of those discussions so you can come prepared for January meeting.
yeah, it's I worked at Point Lay on the dew line, and you're stationed up there and you get no aircraft coming in for maybe a month at a time. And your maintenance is what keeps the building going, which keeps the people alive. And it would just be this week, this day, you do this, then you go back 7 days or 2 weeks and you put that card in there, and it could be 6 months. But that kind of PM work is just, okay, you're on PM today, spend 4 hours in the morning doing this work, get it done, go on to something else. And then you're done with it. And then it becomes a routine, and the routine becomes, oh, it looks pretty nice here. Look, there's no trees hanging in the walkway. I'm not beating my face against a blackberry that's coming in, the ridge path or something like that. And this is, that's the kind of PM work I'm asking for Mark to talk to me about.
All right, we'll make that happen.
Okay.
Sidewalk repair, line 20, inventory damaged sidewalks. That is something that Mark does have an inventory on it. It is needing to be updated as well. But it's also something that we're going to be accomplishing some of the with the new sidewalk grant that we received, we'll be able to update some of the sidewalks in the main town area. But there are areas that we've identified, such as the ocean sidewalks, that could use some help. There's some areas on Marion that has some flooding that we probably need to bring up some of the asphalt and then the best that we can. But the inventory is not complete at this time. But now that we have the sidewalk project coming up, Mark and I will work on accomplishing that this year.
I know I know several women who like to walk. They could do a volunteer,
They could probably get that inventory done.
because I've been approached by a couple of them about the condition of some of the sidewalks around town, not just on Marion or Pacific Way.
Or ocean, I think there's a couple of other places. We don't have a lot of sidewalks in town, so it shouldn't be a really task. Most of Gerhard is on covered sidewalk, so.
Right.
Have the safety committee go out there. Well, it is a safety thing. It is risk management.
Our safety committee is very active, and it has gotten much better recently. Or at least more fun to be a part of as well.
So I have a question. I know that the property owners are responsible for the sidewalk initially. are they also responsible for the upgrade of the sidewalks?
Yes, by ordinance in Gearhart, the property owners adjacent to the sidewalks in front of their homes is responsible for the sidewalks.
So any upgrades to the sidewalks by our Public Works Department would be expensed to the property owners?
Yeah, that is one way that it should go. Currently, what's happening is occasionally, like you see on Ocean Avenue, when we have a remodel project or a rebuild, at that time, they are upgrading and fixing the sidewalks. So you'll see some nice patches of beautiful sidewalk alongside some things that aren't so nice. There should be an opportunity where the city starts looking at these, having a plan, and then start making people aware that the sidewalk needs to be repaired and replaced, and that they will be responsible for the majority portion of that cost.
So what's the process for the notification of the property owners that their sidewalk will be repaired? I mean, how much notice do they get?
We haven't done much of that in the past, but the first part of that will be the inventory of the sidewalks themselves.
Thanks.
Then once we determine what's needed to be done, then they'll be notified as per the ordinance. Those things need to be accomplished.
But we got this grant to do repairs,
Correct.
so property owners won't have to pay.
Not on this particular section. In the section that we chose to write the grant request for, we felt was where most people in Gearhart as a community use the sidewalk. And so that's up and down Pacific Way with a small extension potentially up towards and past the park for safety and for better parking. So with that grant that we received, no, those folks, the upgrades will not be paid for by them. It'll be paid for by this grant from the city going through that process.
So if someone who's on a walk trips and falls because of the faulty sidewalk and they sue, would they sue the city or the property owner?
Well, the way that I've seen lawsuits come out, it's anybody that could possibly be attached to any sort of sidewalk. So I think that, yeah, it would be both with the homeowner as per our ordinance and the city as per, depending on our inventory and how our maintenance is going.
We didn't push the owners to fix it, therefore we have liabilities
As well.
So what would the percentage be between the city and the property owner?
You never, I don't think we'd ever really know that. I don't know, but I think it'd be safe to say for planning sakes, it would be maybe 50-50.
All righty then, thanks.
What do you say we just try to avoid that to be?
All right, I'll put that on the goals list, avoid litigation.
that number one.
Yes, always.
Knock on wood here, we've been doing pretty well. All right.
I'm just gonna do a time check, it's almost 8 o'clock. How long are we willing to stay?
We can buzz through the last of this because
This is all from administrator reviews.
We're more than 2/3 way done. We have most of these items on here already been taken care of. So I'll move to line 26, kids play equipment on page 3. We're in that process now. Planning commission application is being completed, and we should be able to approach the planning commission in the February meeting. Let's see, after that, we're down zoning, small space housing. Put a 25% down there because again, it's an onboard project, and that has to do with smaller homes, tiny homes, whether or not that is possible, looking at potential zone changes, and that sort of thing. So we don't really have any direction as where to head with that right yet. But again, from our conversation earlier today, Mayor, it was everything that we do in regards to property development, zoning, and that is filtered through the idea that we want to improve our workforce housing every opportunity.
And this could also include accessory dwelling units in existing residential areas?
Yeah, if the city council wanted to take on increasing the density within the current zones to allow for ADUs. Currently in the R1 and R2 zone, accessory dwelling units are not allowed. The R2 zone does allow duplexes and threeplex, fourplexes in certain circumstances. But in the R1 zone, it's single family dwelling only at this point.
Septic becomes a real barrier there also, because if you increase bedroom volume, you have to upgrade your septic system accordingly. And accessory dwelling units, especially on smaller lots, most people have already used most of their open space for their primary and secondary septic locations. So Gerhard isn't necessarily a prime city for accessory dwelling units in that regard. And it doesn't mean it couldn't happen under new construction, because it could be planned for, but for people that have homes, it becomes much more arduous, even when we said it was okay to do.
So there's probably a certain lot size where you could do something, but not every quarter-acre lot.
Absolutely
There are
not.
many quarter-acre lots. Really, when you look at the core. There are 10,000 square foot lots, 0.19, I believe, there's a 0.23, maybe it's 0.23. Okay, we're 7,500 square foot lot, which is our minimum in any new development, R2, yes. And that's a 0.19, so.
And we have a 5,000, essentially a 5,000 square foot minimum in the R1 zone for a single family dwelling without owning the adjacent properties. And that can be reduced down to 4,000 square feet if that particular property is only sized that, but it cannot be reduced down to 4,000 square feet.
Right, and then it's our comp plan says we want to keep a low density
Right.
R1 zone, so it's, you're not gonna go around, well, yeah, you go ahead and build an auxiliary. It's because that's a higher density and it's not comparable, it's not compatible with our comp plan, excuse me.
So it really sounds like when we get into discussing this more, and maybe this would be another work session topic to just have a great discussion about that it becomes something more like, we've got this chunk of land, is there something we can do with that, as opposed to, let's do something in the existing neighborhood.
Right.
Yeah, which is probably what you were trying to say.
That makes sense.
So if the council wants to keep that, at least on there, we also had a discussion about, the workforce affordable housing being 100% finished, but not quite, because it's going to be filtered through. I guess I'm looking for some direction from the city council as to whether or not they want to keep that on the goals list to look as a specific project. So that's something that we can think about and change at any time. But right now it's under completion and we don't have any future projects having to do with affordable housing in the hopper.
I think it needs to be on there. I would combine them.
Yeah.
I think it needs to be an ongoing project forever, because workforce housing is going to be with us for decades to come. So yeah, let's keep it on.
I'll combine that line 29 with line 3 and just kind of keep those consolidated. Any ideas that come up, we'll do that. So we'll make that change. Vibrant downtown, the business committee, there has been some,
You skipped legacy tree project.
excuse me.
Oh yeah, Rita, we're on.
I know Rita has done some research on this.
So I have been working on this, although not as fervently as I should, I confess. However, I have been looking into a lot of the tree projects that are sponsored by the Arbor Foundation. I should have a report for the city council about what I've accomplished in the January meeting. I hope that's okay. But yeah, that's it.
That's awesome.
Sorry, I'm laughing.
And I've got a feeling that the planning commission is going to start taking up some of these conversations regarding trees as well. So I think it'll become top of mind sooner than later. Vibrant downtown. Again, Councilor Warren's been helping us along with that. Councilor, if you wanted to talk anything about that.
Yes, am I on? I guess I did turn off my mute. So yes, one of the things we keep coming back to is septic, and we talked about Centennial Park making accommodation when the playground equipment goes in for any potential shared septic system for the C1 downtown Gerhart zoning area. I think because of the configuration of the lots, the highest and best use for many of the properties in downtown can be enhanced if we had a shared septic system. And that development could include workforce housing on a second floor with retail or office space on the first floor. But it's really impractical without a shared septic system. So I think we ought to pencil in there exploration of a downtown Gerhart shared septic system.
As a way of getting to a vibrant downtown.
As a way to get, yeah, it's a strategy for getting to a vibrant downtown.
I inherently have heartburn with the concept of that. I mean, you're increasing the value of the properties for the property owner and decreasing the value of the park for our citizens.
Well, yeah, you're increasing the value, but it doesn't mean that we can't charge for that value.
There's been some ideas going around about this since this has been brought up, and there is a group of people that have been making investments in downtown that are people that have been local within Gerhart for years. They're interested in the project, and where we left it with them right now is that if they are interested, they will do some research on that and then make a presentation to the city council. Of course, city staff will help with any of the information that they need. So right now, we're just waiting for them and their, to see where their interest really is with that. It is on their mind, this conversation. I don't know exactly where it is right now. That's kind of the way we're looking at it from staff's perspective. We haven't gone out and done any research about it other than putting the process through a little bit. But if they are very much interested in it, they'll just get in help with the study and then make a presentation, or at least come to the council with some ideas.
So a lot of communities, when they are planning for the building of new homes, they have all these fees. And a lot of communities have systems fees to pay for things like this. Has Gerhart thought of doing something like that to add to the cost of putting up a new home or a new building? I mean, have we ever explored systems fees?
Dan's mentioned it.
For years.
For years.
Well, good for you, Dan. I'm on your side.
We're the only community in the area that does not have a systems development charge.
I think we should.
Outrageous. I mean, Manzanita's. The last time I built there was 24,000 and change.
And charges could pay for something like this. So I think it would be wise for the city of Gerhart to explore this and maybe pay for some of these upgrades that we need to enhance our community.
We wouldn't pay for any of this if this was to be brought before the council, because I certainly wouldn't say, I'll pay for a septic system for all the downtown businesses to have a septic system. But as far as the system development charge, I'm all for that. I've agreed with Dan for years that this is something we should have.
Well, let's get it on the list.
Well,
I'm
and,
with you, Dan, and I'm with you, Carrie. Systems fees, let's go.
No votes, no votes.
and an alternative to system development charges is formation of a local improvement district for downtown. So it only applies to the downtown businesses. And you can structure it many different ways. You can make membership optional, mandatory, but charge a fee to hook up to the system. So yeah, nobody's saying for the city to pay and benefit the private businesses. They're going to have to carry their own water, so to speak. Wastewater.
But if we want a vibrant downtown to enhance our community, it's something that we should really think about.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
so I just putting that out there.
It's going to really limit the development potential for downtown without a shared septic system.
I agree. And a lot of times the systems fees will go to any new schools that are going to be built, if the population increases or anything. So I just think that would be perfect for the downtown.
There's a lot of opportunity for that. That is something that will be incorporated in the water rate study as well. When we determine whether or not our rates are able to keep up with our the maintenance and the upgrades and the expansion of our system, then system development charge conversation will happen. There are some very particular laws in Oregon about how to develop those system development charges, and that has to all be quantified, studied, public meetings and that sort of thing. That is going to be a part of the conversation that I will add SDCs onto the water rate study line on the goals list.
Well, quantify it then.
Let me add, as somebody who's financed a lot of affordable housing all over the place, system development charges are a major obstacle to creation of affordable housing. And so it's kind of ironic that the city, in its desire to do more, is helping to price out the more affordable housing because they can't afford to pay $25,000 for a SDC.
Right.
So yeah, and then there's been some litigation over waiver of system development charges. If you're a nonprofit, you can get it waived because you're creating affordable housing and have rent restrictions or sales price restrictions to make it affordable. And then you're competing against a for-profit housing developer that has to pay full freight with the SDCs. So they sometimes don't feel that that's fair. So it's a very complex question. So we got to think about it very carefully.
I think that's what the laws within Oregon will help us guide us through some of that. And I have seen some opportunities where SDCs are actually used, the money that is incoming is used towards some of the workforce housing. But again, the issue that you come up with is unfair competition of sorts with being funded for that. So we'll be able to get into that nitty gritty. I have not been through that procedure yet, but I know it's complicated and it's thorough.
With the exception of potentially multifamily and probably a larger multifamily complex, I think Gerhardt is already surpassed its ability to have affordable housing, meaning the cost of building here, the cost of the land, the cost of the septic system. We can talk about how nice it would be to have affordable housing and workforce housing in Gerhardt, but I don't think the opportunity is really there to pull that off. in the current economic situation, and it's why we don't see much. I mean, we don't see many multifamily units here. It's just too expensive, and you know, I mean, it's public record, I suppose. It'll be next week or next month's property thing. I mean, I just sold a highway 101 frontage lot, which would, in my opinion, would be highly undesirable to live on, for $80,000 with no realtors involved. I mean, it's just a, you know, somebody who might have had it and we'd like to buy it. Okay, here, you know, here's some money, let's make it happen. You can't do affordable housing when people are paying that kind of money for what I would consider to be one of the worst pieces of dirt in the community. I mean, it's just not feasible.
Market price for property in Gerhart is just, you'll never get anything small
No. So, and we can talk it, you know, we can pretend like we're trying to make something happen, but reality is that surpassed us a long time ago. Other than promoting, you know, does the Palmberg property, you know, do we want to do a high density thing there? That kind of thing could happen. But as far as onesie twosies, I just don't see it as being feasible ever, really.
In regards to that Palmberg property, that was something that was proposed, and you got local community within it. Didn't like that because that wasn't that, you know, rural agricultural going to high density was quite a big jump. And I also think that this is a larger state of Oregon issue as well with land use, in the way that it's written out. A lot of good things about Oregon land use, but the inability for certain communities, and this goes across the state, to actually expand its urban growth boundary has created some of that pent up demand for homes. So there's a lot of moving parts in that. I'm not sure how we can solve it, but as long as every decision that we make is you know, towards trying to do what we can, I think that's the best we can. It's the merit.
It's kind of curious to think, how can we be helpful to Warrington or even the county, you know, between here and Warrington? Are there opportunities? But I don't know how we would be, you know, other than writing a letter saying, yeah, we think that's great. I don't know what else we would do or could do.
And also brings us back to the conversation of water. Currently, Warrington is not issuing building permits for much of the unincorporated areas because of their water restrictions and demands. So it's another issue that is quite complicated.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And I just wanted to respond a little bit because you're right. Gerhart would be very expensive for the private market to solve the issue of affordable housing. But there are multiple sources of subsidy out there, federal, state, block grant money. The philanthropic community is out there subsidizing affordable housing all over the place. It really takes a nonprofit developer who has a mission to accomplish it. And Clatsop County doesn't really have a whole lot of indigenous affordable housing developers. The couple of projects that are just starting up in Astoria and Warrenton, the organizations are coming in from Portland and Milwaukee. So, but it is possible given enough subsidy, and there's lots of sources out there. Affordable housing developers have a joke: if you don't have as many sources of funding as you have units in the project, you failed. So,
Well, yes, I understand what you're saying, Brent, but given the choice of buying land in Warrenton or Gerhart or Seaside or Cannon Beach, economics say you're going to choose Warrenton first, likely Seaside second, and you flip a coin for Cannon Beach and Gerhart. I mean, you know, it's I agree, we shouldn't try to put things in the way of causing somebody to not be able to do affordable housing. I just am not sure that if we do nothing, we're still going to have, affordable housing. And I don't know what we do to promote it, as Helena said, it's kind of like that ship sailed here unless somebody has a real tie to Gerhard and just wants to, put their good fortunes to use specifically in funding a project in Gerhard, but I haven't seen anything like that thus far.
Not thus far.
Yeah.
So Brent, I understand the word indigenous, but what do you mean when you say indigenous builders? I don't get that.
Local nonprofit organizations that are doing single family, small multifamily, large multifamily. All of those have a unique area of expertise. And Clatsop County just doesn't have anybody doing that.
So you're speaking only of local builders then? That's what you mean?
Yes, so
Okay.
that's why the projects currently underway in Astoria and Warrenton are Portland organizations.
I get it.
Large, very well-respected Portland nonprofit organizations that used to just concentrate in a little teeny neighborhood.
Sure.
And now they've gone regionally and statewide.
And are those multifamily projects, or are they single family projects, or both?
They're multifamily. They're going to be using low-income housing tax credits, which essentially provides a good chunk of equity into the project to make the project able to debt carry. So we can have a whole workshop on low-income housing tax credits if you want.
Thank you for that. And I think that in regards to those items, getting back to the downtown and the vibrant community, that's something that we, the city staff would like to re-engage. And we've got some good ideas that are yet to be implemented. And that's something that we will continue to do as well. And I look forward to working with you again on that. Page 4.
I have a request, we end at 8:30, so let's.
Okay. Yeah, I was down to update the codes and ordinance book is something that's kind of constantly beyond there. We have some pet projects that we'd like to work on, but I'm not going to report on those yet here. There's some changes to our codes to update them to make them more able to administrate. Audit is complete. Successful fire station bond September, November. Now that should be almost 0%. We did not make those dates, but we are moving forward with May. And just so that you know, that's going to take, this project is going to take more and more of the city's bandwidth within the next 6 months in order for us to accommodate. So just so you're aware that that'll keep us quite busy. Of course, we'll be working on other projects, but moving forward with our projects, some of them will have to go aside for that.
Chad, I had a question about audit complete. So was that in reference to last year's audit?
Yeah, as we were delayed on that audit because of the changeover from our auditors, losing one, getting another.
Yeah, I realize that, but maybe we ought to specify what year the audit is and say that that audit is complete, but the current year's audit is ongoing.
Currently, yes, or we can take that off indeed, because moving forward, it's just going to be an ongoing process the city is required by law to go through. And
Great.
we are on top of it at the moment.
That works too.
Yep.
Good. Okay, dashboard council goals, that's what we're working on. Greater track than 50%, that's kind of a difficult number to attain, but I think that we're close to that as you look at the number, the green versus yellow.
Yeah.
Let's see here, successful change in staff due to retirements. We already talked about the fire chief's position. We're going to be accommodating that. Chief Bowman is again going out for the other officer, and he has asked for some more money available from the city council, and you have provided that for him. Building planning assistant will move that off as well, because that's been accomplished. There is one that I'd like to change, per Brent, that was done, determine how the city's commitment for the Oregon Solutions L project will impact building open spaces, consumer education, etc. I think that goes along with what we said earlier about looking towards the planning commission of what we should be working on next. And then those things, as far as the commitments that we come up with doing first, we should filter through those ideas. What is the impact of building open space, consumer education, etc.? It's nothing that we're accomplishing at the moment, but in the future we will. So I will change that back to 50%. And again, redundant 50% higher trained planning assistant to assistant code enforcement. We've already talked about that, and I will combine that in with the other area above. Another item that we're going to add is it's ongoing. It was a process through the city's now into is the zip code change. It's kind of a goal within the city. We'll track the progress of that as we move forward. But we are in the middle of that now. So nothing more to report on that at the moment. Other than that, yeah, this is also another opportunity for the city council to recommend some other projects, although they can do that at any time. For tonight's work session, it was more reporting and updating where we are at. And then in council meetings and future reportings, we can always add, change, delete any of these items. In the meantime, are there any other comments from the city council or things that they'd like to see or changes they'd like to make to this at the moment?
I'm good.
Okay.
I'm done.
We've been busy. I appreciate your help with this.
Brent or Rita, any final comments?
Nope,
I have none.
I've said my piece.
Okay. All right,
Thank
thank
you. Yeah,
you.
thank you.
Thank you very much. Do we have to have a motion to adjourn
As a work session? No, I don't think so.
or? Okay, we're all done.
Bye, everybody.
Good night.